Meeting on the air first and third Sunday, 7 p.m., W5FC.
Good evening, everyone. This is Virginia in D5S, and I will be the net control for Skynet. We will start in about 7 minutes, so if anybody needs to use the repeater before Skynet begins, this is a good time to do that. We'll see you at 9 o'clock in D5S.
This is the W5FC repeater, PL110.9. SpeakNet every fourth Monday at 7 p.m., W5FC.
Mr. Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Someone is keying up the repeater, but no audio. This is KF5JJ.
Hi, Chaz. This is Virginia. I don't know who was keying the repeater. As soon as I was about to start, it just keyed up, and I'm about to get going here.
It was the All-Star node, and I don't know if somebody clicked in, but it's been restarted, and hopefully we'll fix it. KF5WL.
Okay, thank you, Bill. I appreciate that information. All right, let's go. Welcome to Skynet. Sorry about the delay, everybody. This is NV5F. My name is Virginia, and I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the # break and your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic at this time? This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from the net control. That would be me. And stations are reminded to please ID at the end of all your transmissions. This weekly net operates on 146.88 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio and video links are available online. Go to W5FC.org right now. At the top of the page, there will be a Skynet notice, and there will be a link to our live video. Remember to tell others about this popular net. You can now check into the net electronically by going to the club website, W5FC.org, and look for tonight's announcement. And at the top of that, there will also be a hot link to check in online. We will acknowledge you on the air, and don't worry, if you want to go ahead and check in the old-fashioned way via voice or Echolink, we also will keep doing that. All amateur operators are welcome. You need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. This net is 90 minutes long and is structured in several parts. General announcements, Texas Astronomical Society of Texas events, National Space Society events, discussion topic of the evening, What's Up, space exploration and space history, Constellation of the week, space launches of the week, visible satellite passages over the next few days, and if there's time, at the end we can have an astronomical Q&A and a 73 round. All amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in. At the moment, we currently have these people checked in via our electronic check-in. We have KE5ICX Tom in Corpus Christi, NV5F Virginia in Fort Worth, KF5JHA Chaz in the Milky Way Galaxy Solar System, and let's see, we have A5AH Robert in Richardson, N5BB Bill in Irving, NT5TM Tony in Bird City, KN5EE Al in Allen, Texas. So that's a pretty good start. Next we'll start with RF check-ins with short time. Do we have any short time check-ins for Skynet? Please come now with your call sign, your name, and your location. Okay, nothing heard there. Next we'll take general RF check-ins. If you would like to check in over the air, please come now with your call sign, your name, and your location for Skynet.
This is Kilo, Golf 5, Uniform, Foxtrot, Romeo, Jacob in Farmers Branch.
This is Whiskey Bravo 4, Mike Foxtrot, India, WB4MFI, Ted, Dallas, low power.
This is Kilo 9 Alpha Hotel Oscar, K9 AHO, Brian in Terrell.
Kilo, Foxtrot 5, Zulu, Bravo, Lima, Bill, Farmers Branch.
This is Kilo Golf Whiskey Victor Lima, James in North Carrollton. Alpha Charlie 5, Victor Charlie, Cecil in Mesquite.
All right, so far I have KG5UFR Jacob in Farmers Branch, WB4MFI Ted Dallas low power. I have K9 AHO Brian in Terrell. I have KF5ZBL Bill in Farmers Branch, KG5WBL James in North Carrollton, and AC5BC Cecil in Mesquite. Do we have any more RF check-ins before I continue for Skynet?
This is Whiskey 5, Golf, Uniform, Sierra, Gus, far, far northeast Dallas.
This is November 5, Oscar Foxtrot, Clay in Mesquite.
Okay, and we've added W5GUS, Gus in Northeast Dallas, and N5OF Clay in Mesquite. All right. Now, do we have any Echolink check-ins for Skynet? This is Virginia, NV5F, your net control. Echolink check-ins, let's see. I probably don't even need to ask, I can just look. Everyone who's on Echolink is already checked in. So we're going to continue with anyone, anywhere, any mode. If you would like to check in for Skynet, please come now with your call sign, your name, and your location. Okay, looks like we have everybody for the moment. Next, do we have any general announcements for the net? This could be ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest to licensed hams. If you have any announcements, please come now.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
Okay, go ahead, Tony.
Thank you, Virginia. We don't have too much tonight. Tonight's Afterglow movie discussion will focus on a movie. It was in color, and it was made in 1980. It was called The Apple. Please don't watch it if you haven't cursed yourself already, although it is available on Tubi TV. And it is a real movie. It has special effects and actors, and people worked so hard on it, and I cry for their behalf. Although I guess I should remind myself, the crew gets paid whether the movie's good or bad. So on that wonderful happy note, yes, 10:30, 10:35 or so, we'll be discussing The Apple. If you haven't seen it, it's okay. All check-ins are welcome and appreciated, and you can always weigh in on whether you would watch it after you hear what we think of it. You won't, trust me. There are no Dallas Amateur Radio Club nets this Sunday, but I do hope that you'll join us for MCOM 101 on Monday at 7 p.m. This is our second Monday net. It's open to any ham interested in public service communication, and you're welcome to share your questions, tips, and experiences. Net control is Kevin, N5KRG, and let me tell you, he's actually kind of busy. He needs your help and support. Even if you just take a round of check-ins, you don't have to sign up for a permanent net control gig at first. He'll try to get you interested in that later. If you just want to help out, please send him an email at n5krg@arrl.net. Maybe you could just give a presentation for 5 minutes. He really would appreciate your help, and I'll be glad to hear your check-in this Monday at 7. NT5TM, back to net.
Thanks, Tony. Appreciate the announcements, and I am going to remind everybody that a week from today, on July the 18th, Moon Day is going to be going on at Frontiers of Flight near Love Field in Dallas at the museum there. It is a fun all-day STEM event geared towards the younger folks, but everybody else is welcome, and we all like it. There's some really great talks by astronomers, and usually there's an astronaut there speaking, and the Dallas ARC, we have a booth, and AMSAT has a booth right next door, and they're we're looking for volunteers for both. I'm going to volunteer with AMSAT, and I'm always there for DARC too in case they need me, and if you want to volunteer for AMSAT, you would want to get in touch with Tom in 5HYT. He runs the AMSAT net on this repeater on Tuesday nights, so that was Tuesday nights at 8, so that would be a good time to get in touch with him. And then for volunteering for the DARC, you can get in touch with Bill, KF5ZBL, or probably any of the officers for the Dallas ARC, and setup for that starts early. It opens at 10 to the public. Setup starts around 8 or 9, and then if you want to volunteer during the day, you can just tell the museum people that you're volunteering for one of those clubs. Anyway, Moon Day is great. It's fun. It's fun to attend. It's fun to volunteer. And get in touch with somebody if you'd like to help us out on Moon Day. It goes from 10 to 4, and we're usually done setting up and out the door not too long after 4. And the museum's very cool, and we just like to have a lot of people to show about amateur radio and about amateur radio in space at Moon Day. This is Virginia, NV5S. I'm your net control here on Skynet this week. And speaking of net, we do have lots of cool nets on here, and one of the ones related to stuff involving Skynet is the AMSAT net, Amateur Radio Satellite Group. There's 3 nets available to Dallas residents. On Tuesday evenings at 8 o'clock Central, you can check out the National AMSAT net. You can learn all about amateur satellites and how you can use them in amateur radio. The National AMSAT net will bring the most up-to-date information on amateur satellites currently in use or the new ones that are coming online. You'll need Echolink installed and get registered on Echolink. and you can find the net in Echolink under groups and asterisk, AMSAT asterisk. There's also a live audio link available for this net online at www.amsatnet.com. This net originates in Houston, Texas. There's also 2 local AMSAT nets available in Dallas. Both of these nets encourage active check-ins. You can ask questions of the net controls as well as any others who are checked in. The AMSAT net East, Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, is every Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. on this repeater, 146.88 megahertz, PL tone 110.9. That's Tuesday evenings, and Tom, N5HYT, is the net control. And all are welcome to check in. The first Tuesday of the month is DARC Club Night, so there's no AMSAT net that night. There's also Dallas AMSAT net West is every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on the Arlington Club repeater, and that's 147.14 megahertz, and that's also PL tone 110.9. And it's the same deal. We just take check-ins and talk about AMSAT news and amateur satellite news, and just anyone who's interested in getting into satellites or just beginning to learn how they work. It's a great place to visit. This repeater, DARC's repeater 146.88, has a ton of nets every evening at 6:30. This is the home of the ARRL DFW Early Traffic Net. You can get on here and learn about operating moving traffic on the radio. It's a great training net. On every Monday night, there's some kind of a net. At 7, we have the Ham Fixins net on 1st and 3rd Mondays, and then the second Monday we have MCOM 101, which Tony was talking about. On the 4th week, we have GeekNet. That's the funnest to me because a lot of ham radio operators have a lot of other geeky interests, and we just get on there and talk about a bunch of other geeky topics we like. And then the 5th week is always a surprise net. And this last month we had a 5th week, and we just talked about field day because it was right after field day. Okay, so next, it's the Night of Nets, which is Saturday. That's tonight. And on this repeater on Saturdays, we always have TechNet at 7. We have Skynet, which is you're listening to right now, from 9 to 10. And then at 10:30, for all the crazy people who like to stay up late, we have the Afterglow net, and we talk about a movie that's science fiction or fantasy or science fiction fantasy adjacent. And Tony already mentioned our movie that we're going to be talking about tonight. And then the first and third Sundays of the month, at 7 o'clock, we have Meeting on the Air, which is we just get together as a club, and anybody, even if you're not in the club, just get on Meeting on the Air and just talk about what's going on in your ham world. Okay. Speaking of Afterglow movie, it is time for the very accurate and very complete Afterglow movie info for the movie tonight, and that will be delivered by our friend in Corpus Christi, Tom, KE5ICX from NV5F. Tell us about tonight's Afterglow movie. KE5ICX from NV5F. Are you there, Tom? Tom, KE5ICX. I'm going to give it one more go. Are you there? Okay, it sounds like All-Star might still be acting up, so I will be Tom tonight, and I will tell you about tonight's Afterglow movie. From an actual review for The Apple from 1980, things I learned from this movie. First, never underestimate the musical value of plexiglass. Next, the devil speaks English, French, German, and Italian. Ballet can include sequins and even a fire breather, but a midget might be stretching things a bit. Next, Satan uses Miracle Grow in his orchard. Next, Disney will eventually purchase Amtrak. Having a big perm is a distinct disadvantage in a fight. Next, the entire cast of Cats went to hell. Next, hippies hate television. And finally, the rapture is when God descends from heaven in his white Rolls Royce to whisk away all the hippies to a new planet. The rest of us will be left to suffer the horrors of popular music. Join us tonight on the Afterglow movie net at 10 o'clock after this net for The Apple from 1980. It is a musical, believe it or not. You can keep up with all DARC events, nets, and activities by going to the club website, W5FC.org. All right, I'm going to check again and see if we've added any people to our electronic check-in thing. It looks like no, there's not anybody new there. I will now take additional check-ins from any other mode. If you'd like to check into Skynet, as many fits and starts as we're having tonight, we're still taking all the check-ins we can get. Call sign, name, and location. Please come now.
C2, this is Kilo Delta 5, Vector Yankee Oscar, operator Ed White Rock, and would like some assistance when the show is over.
Okay, I have Kilo Delta 5, Victor Yankee Oscar. I did not catch your name. Yeah, we do have a pretty lengthy net in progress. This net will not conclude until about 10:30. But you are welcome to be on the list to check in if you would like to. I have your call sign and your location. If you could just please give me your name.
Affirmative, operator Ed, Echo Delta, White Rock.
Okay, thank you, Ed. We appreciate you checking into Skynet this evening, and please hang around and enjoy all the cool astronomy stuff we've got going on. And if you want to stick around after the net to speak with anybody you might need to speak to, feel free to do that as well. I do need to ask, is this any kind of an emergency or anything very urgent, or did you just want to get on the list?
It's not an emergency, but I'm an old dude on a walker stuck at White Rock Station and need a ride to my house on White Rock Trail.
Okay, I am not necessarily the person to assist. Is there anyone on the net who can assist this gentleman and knows where he is? If you could please come now with your call sign.
NT5TM.
NT5TM, go.
I heard the words White Rock, but I did not understand the question.
This operator, KD5VYO, his name is Ed. He's somewhere in White Rock, and he said that he is somewhere in that area and is trying to find a ride somewhere, I believe.
Ed, this is NT5TM. I live over near the Arboretum. Can you explain your question again, sir?
Yes, sir, please. My name is Ed, and I my phone is on the fritz because I'm not under a Wi-Fi umbrella, so I can't call the Echolink people to get me a ride home. I'm stuck in White Rock Station. And you can get a ride to my house on White Rock Trail.
Okay, that's very frustrating. Maybe I could relay information for you. I kind of feel like this has happened before. Does this sound? Have you done this before? Does this sound familiar to you?
Yes, sir. It does. Very familiar. I haven't done it in probably a couple months, but yes, it's familiar. And I only use this radio when I'm not under the Wi-Fi umbrella.
Okay, what frequency did you use last time? Did you go simplex? What did you do?
I used this beast, or else I used the Richardson machine. I don't remember which. But anyway, they're the only two I can reach on this 6-watt radio.
Okay, I'm going to QSY to the Richardson 14712 repeater. I'm going to QSY to the Richardson 14712 repeater, and then we'll let net control get on with the net here. Is that okay?
Welcome. I'm QSY. 73's there, buddy, out there on the net. Bye-bye for now. God bless y'all.
NT 5 PM.
Okay, thank you, Tony, and if you need any help over here, just let us know. All righty, hopefully they'll get that sorted out and maybe get a phone call where it needs to go to help that gentleman get home. All right, this is Virginia, NV5F. It has been a very eventful Skynet so far. Let's get going with our Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope. Go right ahead, Chaz.
Thank you, Virginia. Good evening, everyone. This is Chaz, KF5JHA. On July the 24th is the next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting. The meeting is going to be held at 7:30 p.m. in person at the University of Texas at Dallas, and also held at Zoom. The featured speaker, I'm not quite sure who that's going to be. Now, the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas also hosts Saturday night public observing stations in this area. Skynet was picked to be on Saturday night, so there could be an opportunity for live reports from the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas public observing stations. On the second Saturday of the month, that would be tonight, the stargazing is held at Frisco. Do we have a ham radio operator at the stargazing that would like to make a report? Please come now with your call sign, if there is. It's a long way up to Frisco from the repeater, so probably not. There's a lot of things to see out there. Venus is the really bright thing in the west. There's a lot more things to see in the sky other than that. Now, just to let you know, the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas will be participating with a booth at the Moon Day next week, so you can visit them as well. You can check the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas website at texasastro.org for updated information and details about meetings and public observing stations and activities. And this is KF5JHA, back to our net control.
Alrighty, thank you, Chaz. I was hoping there was going to be somebody at the site who wanted to call in just to add to the eventfulness of this evening. Oh, alas. Alright, next we have National Space Society events with Bill Byram, N5TV. Let us know what's going on with National Space Society.
Thank you, Virginia. This is N5BD, November 5 Bravo Bravo. I happen to be the Vice President and Membership Director of the National Space Society North Texas Chapter. The National Space Society is a non-profit group based in the U.S. which is interested in the exploration and development development of space and the creation of a spacefaring civilization. Our local National Space Society chapter website is ntx.nss.org. Our group also has an active Facebook page. Just type National Space Society of North Texas into the search box. July will be a busy month for the North Texas chapter of the National Space Society. We have four events going on this month. Here they are. Event number 1 is tomorrow. The North Texas chapter of the National Space Society will meet at 3:30 p.m. at Spring Creek Barbecue on Highway 183 in Irving. This is at the Beltline intersection directly across Highway 183 from Irving Mall. The topic will be Roman the Stars. Let me spell that. R-O-M-A-N, the Stars. And the presenters are Cynthia, N5TFB, and Dietrich, KI5L, Wizenon, who used to live here locally, but they've now live out in northeast Texas. The Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope is slated to launch no later than May 2027, with the team aiming for as early as fall 2026 launch. The observatory will survey the infrared skies to provide transformative science on astrophysics, cosmology, and exoplanets. With its wide field instrument, with its wide field instrument, the Roman Space Telescope will have a field of view about 100 to 200 times larger than the James Webb Space Telescope and Hubble, and conduct Hubble quality science about 1,000 times faster. With its coronagraph instrument, the Roman Space Telescope will demonstrate next-generation technology for the first time ever in space to directly image exoplanets, paving the way for future missions to image Earth-like planets in search for life. Event 2 is next Saturday, July 18th. Moon Day will be held at the Frontiers of Flight Museum at Love Field in Dallas. The National Space Society North Texas chapter will be there with exhibits and handouts about human activities in space. Event 3 is the following Saturday, July 25th. Space Day will be held at the Fort Worth Museum of Science and History from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. The National Space Society North Texas chapter will be there. We usually have a couple of events at that museum every year. The Fort Worth Museum of Science and History is in the Museum District in Fort Worth, a few blocks from the Amon Carter Museum. And then event 4 is the following Friday, July 31st. On the last Friday evening of each month at 6 to 8 p.m., the National Space Society North Texas chapter sponsors a social event called Space Rendezvous, currently at Cheddar's Restaurant, 700 West Highway 635 in Irving. You do not need to be a member of any organization to attend. 10 people attended the June event, and I wasn't even there. They got 10 even without me. The big National Space Society event each year is the International Space Development Conference, ISDC. ISD 2026 occurred in early June of this year in Virginia, near Washington, D.C., and I attended. Next year, ISDC 2027 will be held in Los Angeles, California, adjacent to the LAX airport, from May the 27th through the 30th of 2027. It's a 4-day event, very big space conference. If you have any questions about the National Space Society, please contact Bill N5BB at my QRZ listed email address or at space@byrom.net. That's SPACE at BYROM.net. And that's all I've got from a very long list of events this month, Virginia. This is N5BB, back to net.
Okay, thank you, Bill. I appreciate that list, and that Roman telescope sounds neato. I'm looking forward to what's going to come out of that. All right, this is Virginia, ND5F, your net control for this week's Skynet. And I am the net control, so that means I have to bring a discussion topic this evening. My topic will be familiar if you guys know what I like. This wasn't really calculated. I recently wrote this article for a fanzine from a podcast that I take part in sometimes. It's called 2001: A Space Odyssey, and every month they publish a fanzine, and I wrote this article about Project Hail Mary, the movie that came out in March, and its kind of heritage and connection with 2001. And I thought this would be a fun thing to share since I finished writing it a few days ago, and I would like to share it here this evening. There are some neat images that I have with it, and I'm guessing Tom will be putting those on YouTube, so if you wanted to see images from the film along with this article, that would be the way to do it. It is a spectacularly beautiful film, and I also love 2001, so this article was inevitable. So here we go. This article is entitled Space Odysseys and Hail Marys by Virginia R. Smith. That's me, ND5F. Here we go. Andy Weir, author of The Martian, is about the same age as the author of this article. So I can imagine that he might have been of similar age as I was when he first saw the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey. And I also guess that back then he could hardly have imagined that one day he'd write a book which might be considered an instant science fiction classic, let alone two books. That this book, before it was even published, would be sold for development as a major motion picture. In fact, he did this twice. This film would also one day possibly be considered a science fiction classic. Project Hail Mary, both book and film, contain homage to a myriad of sci-fi classics, including, of course, 2001, as well as to some of the more specific Generation X favorites, making this unexpected new adventure both a heartwarming voyage home and a mind-blowing space odyssey all at once. I am, however, happy to report that this proper space movie has neither space battles, nor killer aliens, nor a supreme alien intelligence, nor time travel, unless one counts the very effective and entirely necessary use of flashbacks to drive an unlikely character arc. Project Hail Mary 2026 was directed by Phil Lord and Chris Miller, and starring Ryan Gosling as a lovable molecular biologist turned middle school teacher turned international task force lead scientist turned astronaut, with an emphasis on not. It's not a direct tribute to Kubrick's Space Odyssey, though it is a space odyssey in its own right. In fact, this populist space adventure / buddy comedy has more in common with the spooky yet big-hearted classics like E.T. and Close Encounters from 1982 and 1977, respectively. and the Feel Good Funds of Star Trek IV, 1986, and Short Circuit, 1986. But it owes 2001: A Space Odyssey from 1968 at least as much as it is a much more direct continuation of this line of scientific realism, in which it is preceded by movies such as Interstellar from 2014 and The Martian from 2015. The nods and tributes to Project Hail Mary's heritage in Kubrick's masterpiece are far more delicate, though Project Hail Mary is rather the opposite of 2001 in its warm narrative and aesthetic approach. It is similarly groundbreaking in that the directors were determined to go counter to what was considered the state of the art, and in this case that was to harken back to the days when Kubrick and company portrayed space on screen with practical movie magic, and to lean much more heavily in on-camera effects, physical sets, and practical creatures, which were the only options back in 1968. The current more common use of wall-to-wall CGI, motion capture, green screen, and virtual sets have all been eschewed for a more artisanal approach, including 100% real sets, special effects, live puppetry, use of anamorphic lenses turned on their side, and rendering of IMAX-formatted digital footage to a visibly grainy film stock by cinematographer Greg Fraser, as well as a return to something more akin to a proper theatrical motion picture score by British film composer Daniel Pemberton. My first experience of Project Hail Mary was hearing a sample of the first chapter of the novel on Audible when I had completed listening to The Martian, Andy Weir's first bestseller from 2014 last summer. I was not sold on Project Hail Mary right away, however. The opening description of the disoriented Dr. Ryland Grace waking up in a sterile medical bay, not knowing who he is, felt a little too much like the numb, hopeless science fiction I had grown so weary of in the past 20 years. Countless films, large and small, all trying too hard to be like 2001, meets postmodern nihilism while missing the point of Kubrick's film entirely. Perhaps I was spooked by the clinical setting and the scary multi-armed medical robot. After finding out that this book was already an upcoming film about which the buzz was very good, I tried again, and this time I kept listening. The story had humor, like The Martian meets something absurdist like The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, absent any philosophical messaging about futility, and with a very coherent and heartfelt story that sticks close to hard science and contains very little swearing. The balance was just about perfect. The film gets to this whimsy even more quickly than the novel. The playful score and Ryan Gosling's talent for comedy balance the pathos of a man looking from a coma and finding himself alone in deep space with only 2 deceased fellow crew members and a talking spaceship for company. A little flashback to Dave Bowman's predicament in 2001 is inevitable. While this opening scene presents, as in 2001, a very well-conceived utilitarian spaceship environment, the effect is unexpectedly cozy. The Hail Mary has a multi-armed medical robot, mentioned earlier. He is later dubbed Armando, as well as automated beds which regulate biofunctions during the long, sleepy journey from Earth to the Tau Ceti system at near light speed. However, in contrast to the centrifuge aboard the Discovery in 2001, the overall environment of the Hail Mary is dim, with warmly lit patches which change light temperature to regulate circadian rhythms, while brighter overheads wink on in the presence of a crew member. But of course, I could not help but notice all the things that remind me of 2001. The shipboard computer, Mary, is not nearly as chatty as Hal, nor is the silent but somehow earnest and likable Armando. But she tries to be helpful and informative in a way which is both a tribute to and a send-up of our favorite onboard artificial intelligence, with shades of Sigourney Weaver's shipboard computer in WALL-E from 2008. When Mary sweetly asks, "Would you like to go on a spacewalk, Dr. Grace?" One has to hope that she has no direct control over the airlock. Fortunately, the Hail Mary has no space pods. One of the more refreshing things about Project Hail Mary is that the obvious sci-fi plot devices involving having enough air or having enough food or fear of accidental depressurization or AI running amok are made a non-issue in favor of more character-driven story elements, which I will not spoil here. Though there is a brief but pivotal moment involving a concern over depressurization and a space helmet from a red spacesuit nonetheless. Accentuating the highs and lows of its arc, Project Hail Mary boasts a colorful soundtrack in addition to its masterful, multi-flavored score, and while Kubrick chose the blue Danube to illuminate the slow, graceful tumble of Space Station 5 and approaching Orion shuttle in Earth's orbit, Lord and Miller chose the tango El Amanecer for their space dance as the Hail Mary and the alien craft, aptly called the Blip A after its radar designation, match centrifugal spin in order to dock with one another via a tunnel which is uncannily similar to the conveyance between Leonov and Discovery in 2010. This was easily the first moment in Project Hail Mary which I knew at once was a nod to 2001, complete with a wink, tango versus waltz. The use of the centrifuge juxtaposed with music in this film is wonderfully playful and silly, considering the many versions which have come in the nearly 60 years since the release of 2001, including the only lighthearted moment in Gosling's earlier film, First Man from 2018, which is a very sober biopic on the career of astronaut Neil Armstrong. In this take on the centrifuge, the Hail Mary measures out a long set of cables by which the habitat module is spooled out from the fuel and propulsion section. The habitat turns at an angle of 90 degrees, and the entire ship spins so as to render gravitational pull on the entire length of the habitat from the sleeping quarters and medical bay all the way to the bridge. An unorthodox approach inspired by but not taken verbatim from the version described in Weir's novel, where it is explained that a cable system would allow for a feasible distance to be reached for a centrifuge to effectively create adequate gravity. And this is Virginia in V5F, and you're listening to Skynet. I'm your net control this evening, and I am in the midst of my presentation for this evening, and I will continue. Instead of a turning Ferris wheel set, as was used in 2001 to illustrate centrifugal force aboard Discovery, the Hail Mary was designed with sets which could actually be turned 90 degrees. In acceleration mode, the habitat of the ship has its rooms stacked with sleeping quarters at the bottom and the bridge at the top with the lab and the mental health bay in the middle levels. In this configuration, it feels rather like a 1950s science fiction rocket ship, minus Victorian furnishings and spiral staircases or a pointy nose cone. The Hail Mary in Weir's novel actually does have a pointy nose cone and a command deck with slanted walls. When the centrifuge is engaged, the graphic affects the long axis of the habitat, and suddenly the odd vertical walkways next to the ladders make sense as they're now horizontal along the bottom of each room, and all the lab equipment is on the floor versus being bolted to the walls. Being that the sets were practical, they actually had to be turned on their sides on the soundstage at Shepperton Studios, which was the first shooting location for 2001 in December of 19... While zero-G effects were achieved with some ingenious rigging so that Dr. Grace could spin clumsily out of control, punctuating these scenes with an air of humor and helplessness of one who has no astronaut training experience freefall for the first time. Indeed, it was reported by astronauts who visited the set of Project Hail Mary that this was a fairly realistic portrayal of anyone's first experience in zero-G. Speaking of zero-G, perhaps the most striking zero-G image in 2001 is the scene aboard the Orion shuttle while Dr. Floyd sleeps in as his errant pin is plucked from the air by a kind stewardess wearing Pan Am grip shoes. It was later paid tribute to in 2010, in 1984, when an attempt to recreate it with a piece of glass and double-sided tape, as in 2001, failed. Composited computer animation of the pin was later employed with great success. I also spotted a pin among the various stray objects floating randomly about the Hail Mary bridge following engine shutdown and sudden loss of gravity. No doubt this floating flotsam was all done with computers in post, a possible homage to 2001 as well as a reference to Dr. Grace's general lack of organization. In fact, the bridge itself is in some way reminiscent of very reminiscent of the practical visuals of 2001, where futuristic realism aboard the Discovery was achieved down to the last detail, including banks of flat-screen displays, each of which with a projector running hand-animated graphic and text sequences created by Douglas Trumbull. I have heard it assumed that the numerous displays on the Hail Mary command deck were green-screened in. However, nothing could be further from the truth. Every single display was a different make or model of off-the-shelf screen running its own set of graphics in real time, resulting in a cobbled-together appearance where each monitor has its own unique color setting and black levels. Mr. Trumbull would be proud, and NASA would also be proud of the banks of old-school backlit buttons nestled among the multitude of displays, just as much a nod to the Leonov of 2010 as to the Discovery of 2001. Despite the lack of space pods aboard Hail Mary, Dr. Grace has more than his fair share of extravehicular activity in a soundless void complete with true blacks, more 2010 than 2001, a grand backdrop of the Milky Way is beautifully included in a space movie, and nervous breathing as the main audio track. However, it would seem that the void itself is constrained in a rather different aspect ratio than good old Cinerama back in 1968. With the advent of theater screens 50 feet or more in height, and the growing popularity of the IMAX format, which is 1.43 to 1, for major studio film releases, the perception of what more adequately conveys space has evolved to become more tall than wide. In 1968, the Cinerama format was touted as the way to experience the vastness of the universe on a 2.65 to 1 curved screen in very select venues. In the late 90s, to emphasize this trend, the comedy science fiction film Galaxy Quest from 1999 even pulled off a transition from 1.33 to 1 in its opening during an episode of the fictional TV show Galaxy Quest, then expanding to 1.85 to 1 as the actual story begins, and further expanding to 2.35 to 1 as it becomes clear that Captain Taggart, played by Tim Allen, has indeed arrived in outer space for real. In Project Hail Mary, which was filmed for IMAX and played for several weeks in IMAX 70mm theaters around the world, the opposite approach to both 2001 and Galaxy Quest was taken. Flashbacks to Ryland Grace's life back on Earth are shown with a thick letterbox rendering 2.39 to 1, expressing a sense of heaviness and compression with flashes of recollection expressed via anamorphic lens flares that actually bleed into the letterbox during the transition to Grace's returning memories. While the scenes take place in the present in space appear in the full IMAX 1.43 to 1. And though digital IMAX for smaller theaters renders closer to 1.85 to 1, the change in aspect ratio is still noticeable and effective. And as I have been conditioned to equate a wider format with the big screen majesty, Project Hail Mary has gotten me thinking. It can certainly be argued that a taller format causes space to extend further into all edges of the periphery, making it more immersive. I can report that seeing Project Hail Mary in 70mm IMAX is kind of like being in the movie. Regardless of any opinions on the changing aesthetic trend as to what best conveys grandeur at the cinema, IMAX and others have, at very least, preserved the wonder of the great old days of the roadshow screening with premium reserved seating and the feeling that a science fiction movie can still be an event. However, even in light of a solid 3-month theatrical run from Project Hail Mary and box office numbers during the spring quarter which rival summer ticket sales, I marvel at the steady dilution of a unified pop culture since 1968, 2001, or 1977 Star Wars, or 1982 E.T., and I wonder what an event Project Hail Mary could have and should have been. I still meet people who've never heard of it, and I find it delightfully ironic that Lord and Miller's groundbreaking achievement was to turn back the clock by using practical methods tried and true from movies like The Empire Strikes Back from 1980, E.T., 2001, or even Galaxy Quest. Building a full-size spaceship set and rigging it to turn on its end is now going forward by going backwards. I hope Stanley Kubrick is smiling down from film director heaven right now, or, in the spirit of Kubrick's innovative front projection method, using giant LED screens as backdrops in real time instead of compositing in computer-generated backgrounds later on. Everything from genuine flat-screen displays with live graphics to a marked improvement in technology for wire work, which Ryan Gosling did plenty of in this film, is reason itself to do everything for real, and like 2001, it feels real. Kubrick took a risk and threw a Hail Mary for science fiction nearly 60 years ago, and Lord and Miller have done much the same in what I would consider a bold move to put life and heart back into a genre which has been wayward and off in the weeds of visual effects and nihilism for far too long, slogging along with low contrast, dreary, muddy cinematography and green screen effects and hyper-detailed CGI environments which take far too much time and money to produce, considering their lack of appeal of the things which are obviously not real. Meanwhile, the exposition and sincerity have taken a back seat to unspectacular spectacle and unfulfilling storytelling. But as 2001 was a slow burn which gradually took hold in its time, and is as different as Project Hail Mary is in tone and narrative to our favorite space odyssey, I pray it will do the same and make its way into our collective consciousness and onto lists of all-time great science fiction, and be remembered as the generational cinematic event which indeed it is. All right, so there's my connecting of my favorite new science fiction movie with my favorite old science fiction movie. Does anyone out there have any questions or comments for tonight's presentation? Please come now with your call sign. Okay, nothing heard. I hope everyone enjoyed that, and I will also note that Project Hail Mary is, if you're an Amazon Prime member and you have Prime Video, it's actually available to stream at no additional cost on Prime right now. So if you want to see a really neat movie, go on Prime Video and check it out. All right, this is Virginia NV5F, and I'm your net control for Skynet, and I'm going to check for any more check-ins before we continue. Nothing new online. Are there any additional check-ins for the net? Any mode? Come now with your call sign, name, and location.
Hello, this is Whiskey November 5, Romeo November Whiskey, transmitting mobile near DFW Airport. And this is Papa Alpha Tango.
Kilo 5, Juliet Delta Whiskey, John and Coppell, 3 miles from the center of DFW Airport.
Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-ray.
Okay, so we've added WM5RNY PAT mobile. I've added K5JDW John and Coppell, and then I got another check-in. It was Kilo Echo 5 something Echo, and if you could give me your suffix and also your name and location, please.
Oh, by the way, that was Whiskey November 5, Romeo November Whiskey. Anyway, this is Papa Alpha Tango.
Okay, Pat, I'm sorry, I did it again. RNW, I have corrected that. I apologize. Kilo Echo 5 something Echo, can you come with your complete call and your name and location, please?
Yeah, Kilo Echo 5 India Charlie X-ray. This is Tom down in Corpus. Can you hear me?
Oh, Tom, KE5ICX, your audio is kind of low. I apologize. Yes, I do hear you. So if you want to, when we get to your stuff, if you want to do that through, sounds like you're on Echolink. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm on All-Star Link. I turned up the audio a little bit. Is that any better?
Yeah, it's a little bit better. I think it should be all right. So glad you got your audio working. Appreciate you testing that. And now let's go to What's Up with Chaz, KF5JHA.
Thank you, Virginia. Good evening, everyone, once again. I'm going to talk about slides. We have a video version of Skynet over on YouTube. To get to that, go to w5fc.org and click on the link, and you can watch the video version, because we'll talk about some pretty pictures. I hope you did that for the featured speaker topic tonight. So we call this segment of Skynet What Is Up, because it's all about what has gone on astronomically over the last couple of weeks and what will take place over the next couple of weeks and beyond. Slide Master, slide number 3. I've talked about the predicted nova of the star T Corona Borealis, which may erupt at any time. It is currently at a brightness of around 10th magnitude, I just checked a few minutes ago, which is much too faint to be seen with just your two eyes. T Corona Borealis was supposed to go nova about 2 years ago. One recent prediction was for T Corona Borealis to go nova around June the 25th. Well, that didn't happen. But when it does go nova, T Corona Borealis could become as bright as the North Star, which is second magnitude. Now, I can see the North Star with just my two eyes from my very light-polluted location in Mesquite. Slide Master, slide number 4, please. This image of the sun was taken on July the 9th. I borrowed this from the website spaceweather.com. I think it was probably taken from Solar Dynamic Observatory, SDO. The large sunspot complexes on the sun are so large at times that you could use just your solar eclipse glasses to see them. 10 days ago, we had a sunspot just like that. The sun has just passed its 11-year solar maximum, which was in October of 2024. I presented information on the solar cycle about 4 or 5 months ago on Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 5. Third quarter moon was on July the 7th. So the current phase of the moon is a waning crescent. On July the 13th, the moon is at perigee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is closest to the Earth at a distance of 359,112 kilometers. New moon is on July the 14th. July the 21st is the first quarter phase of the moon. On July 25th, the moon is at apogee, which is the point furthest from the Earth at a distance of 405,548 kilometers. Full moon is on July the 29th. Slide Master, slide number 6, please. By the way, our slide controller is Tom, one of the founders of Skynet. Thank you, Tom. July the 9th, there's a conjunction of the moon, Mars, and Uranus in the northeastern morning sky. Did you see it this morning? It was mostly cloudy here this morning, but it's clear tonight. Slide Master, slide number 7. July the 13th, that's just in a couple days, there's a conjunction of Mars and Aldebaran in the east-northeastern morning sky. They're both about the same color and brightness. Slide Master, slide number 8. On July the 16th, there's a conjunction of the Moon and the bright star Regulus in the western evening sky. Slide Master, slide number 9. On July the 17th, there's a conjunction of the Moon and Venus in the western evening sky. I think I've already mentioned it. Venus is that bright object over there in the western evening sky. Pretty easy to see. I saw Venus before the sun set tonight. Yep, it's that bright. You can see it in the daytime sky. Slide Master, slide number 10. On July the 20th, there's a conjunction of the Moon and Spica in the southwestern evening sky. And slide Master, slide number 11. On July the 24th, there's a conjunction of the Moon and the star Antares in the southern evening sky. And this is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 12. Now, do any of you out there in Radio Land have a question or maybe need a fill on any of the information I've given you? Or maybe you just have a general astronomy question. My degree's in astrophysics, I might be able to answer your question, or maybe someone else here on Skynet could do that. Come down with your call sign if you have a question or need a fill. Just to let you know, the Argentinians and the Swiss are tied up at 1-1. They're in overtime mode. Yep, they passed the regular time. They're tied up 1-1. Oh, I'm sorry. Slide Master, slide number 13. So, as the moon wanes, so do these words for this segment of Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. It's the only one where humans live right now. And until next time, actually, I might be doing another segment on Skynet if there's enough time. So keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is KF5JJ, and this is Skynet, which is transmitting on the W5FC repeater in Dallas, Texas, at 146.88 megahertz. Skynet is also available on Echolink and YouTube. We've talked about both those modes recently. Back to our net control.
Okay, thank you, Chaz. Appreciate it. And next we have Gus with space exploration and space history.
Okay, thank you, Virginia. W5GUS here. Space exploration and space history coming up. First, I'll let everyone know that Mary Wally Funk, who was an aviation pioneer and was the oldest woman to launch into space, died yesterday. She was 87. In her apartment in an assisted living facility in the Dallas-Fort Worth suburb of Grapevine, Texas. And Grapevine City Councilwoman Duff Odell, according to Duff Odell, Odell, who described herself as Funk's caregiver, said that she was by Funk's side when it happened. Funk had fallen a couple of times recently and had an infection in her leg. Odell, quote, Odell, it took its toll, Odell said in a phone interview. Funk was one of 13 female pilots who went through the same tests as NASA's all-male astronaut corps in the early 1960s, but never made it into space with that agency. But in 2021, she got her chance aboard Amazon founder Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin rocket. At the time, she was 82 years old and was the oldest person to go into space, although the record was later broken by Star Trek actor William Shatner and Ed Dwight, America's first black astronaut candidate. They were both 90 at the time they were there. So Wally Funk, rest in peace. Okay, we'll go on to SpaceX. July 4th was a pretty busy day, starting with SpaceX successfully launched a Falcon 9 rocket carrying a fresh batch of Starlink satellites in addition to the communication satellites. The payload included experimental semiconductor manufacturing pods for Bexar Space Industries. The mission aimed to test the feasibility of manufacturing high-tech microchips in a microgravity environment. That's what those manufacturing pods were. Following the launch, the rocket's first stage booster made a precise vertical landing on a drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. And this launch demonstrated how commercial spaceflight is expanding beyond communication to active orbital manufacturing, hopefully, possibly. Also on July 4th this year, the Sun emitted a powerful X-1.3 class solar flare that was disrupting high-frequency radio communications on Earth. NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory captured dramatic high-definition imagery of the extreme ultraviolet radiation burst. These high-energy events originate from intense magnetic activity in solar-active regions. Space weather scientists monitored the flare to assess whether an accompanying coronal mass ejection would hit Earth. And missions like the International Space Station remained on alert to protect crew members from elevated radiation levels. And lastly, on July 4th, the Catalyst spacecraft began its on-Earth orbit commissioning phase. The robotic spacecraft is designed to perform a complex orbital rendezvous with NASA's Swift Observatory. And once aligned, Catalyst will physically dock with the telescope, the Swift telescope, and fire its engines to boost the observatory's altitude. This orbital maneuver is intended to counter atmospheric drag and extend the operational lifespan of the aging scientific Swift telescope. The project highlights a growing industry trend toward orbital servicing and active space asset management. Okay, let's move to July 10th this year. China's space program achieved a historic breakthrough in rocket reusability. During a test flight, teams successfully recovered the first stage booster of a rocket. The booster was guided down to seaborne platform where it was caught using an innovative net capture system. And this milestone represents China's first successful recovery of a rocket stage, a capability critical for lowering launch costs. The accomplishment marks a major step forward in China's efforts to match Western commercial spaceflight capabilities. Okay, we'll move to birthdays. Let's see, 1952, July 5th, 1952, Terrence Hendricks was born. He piloted the STS-44 and 55, commanded the STS-70 and 78 missions, conducting key military operations and microgravity science. Across these 4 shuttle missions, he became the first person to fly a shuttle mission with a crew containing 2 physicians, and logged over 42 days in space. Okay, July 5th, 1982, Sophie Edno was born. She was selected as a member of the European Space Agency astronaut class of 2022. She is currently training and preparing for her upcoming mission to the ISS. She was a ham also, KJ5 LTN. Okay, July 6, 1924, Robert Michael White was born, X-15, Flight 62. American test pilot who flew the experimental North American X-15 plane to an altitude of about 60 miles in July 1962. This achievement qualified him for astronaut wings under the military definition of the boundary of space. Okay, July 7th, Kevin Ford, 1960. July 7th, 1960. A ham, KF5GPS. He piloted the STS-128 mission to deliver key science and cargo to the ISS in 2009. He later returned to the station on Soyuz, serving as a commander of Expedition 34. Okay, July 8th, 1935, Vitaly Sevastyanov was born. He flew on the historic Soyuz 9 mission in 1970, which set a new spaceflight endurance record of nearly 18 days. He later flew on Soyuz 18, spending over 62 days aboard the space station. That's the Salyut 4 space station. Okay, July 9th, 1943, John Casper, like the ghost, was born. He piloted the STS-36 mission in 1990 to deploy a classified Department of Defense satellite. He subsequently commanded STS-54, 62, and 77, conducting various microgravity science experiments and deploying satellite payloads. Okay, July 9th, 1960, Christopher Gus Loria was born. He was selected as a NASA astronaut candidate in 1996 and assigned to pilot the STS-113 mission. Unfortunately, he was medically grounded due to a severe back injury, and he never flew in space. All right, July 10th, 1942, Pyotr Klimuk was born. He commanded the Soyuz 13 mission in 1973, which utilized the Orion 2 Space Observatory to conduct astrophysical observation. He later commanded Soyuz 18 to Soyuz 4 and Soyuz 30 to Salyut 6. Logging more than 78 days in space. All right, and the last birthday for this week, Lawrence DeLucas, born in 1950, July 11, 1950. He served as a payload specialist on the STS-50 mission in 1992, which carried the U.S. Microgravity Laboratory. During this flight, he conducted numerous experiments in material science and fluid physics and biotechnology. Okay, a couple things in space history. The NASA launched the uncrewed Apollo AS-203 mission aboard a Saturn rocket from Florida. The primary objective of the flight was to study the behavior of liquid hydrogen fuel in the rocket's second stage under microgravity conditions. Engineers needed to understand how the cryogenic fuel behaved to ensure that the engine could be restarted in orbit, a critical requirement for sending Apollo astronauts to the moon. The spacecraft carried no command and service modules, instead mounting an astrodynamic nose cone directly to the 4B stage. The mission was a complete success, providing vital data that confirmed the stage's design was ready for upcoming crewed mission. Okay, July 6, 1976, Soviet Union launched a Soyuz 21 mission into orbit. The spacecraft successfully docked with Salyut 5 space station, marking the first expedition to this military outpost. During their stay, the crew conducted various military reconnaissance, scientific and biological experiments in microgravity. The mission had to be cut short after 49 days due to the deteriorating health of the crew and potential environmental issues inside the station. Despite the premature ending, the flight successfully returned both cosmonauts safely to Earth, August 1976. Okay, July 7th, 2003, NASA launched the Opportunity Mars Exploration Rover from Cape Canaveral. The robotic rover was designed to search for geological evidence of water activity on the surface of the red planet. Opportunity landed in January 2004, initially planned for a brief 90 Martian day mission. To the astonishment of scientists, the rover remained active for nearly 15 years, traversing over 28 miles of Martian terrain. The historic mission officially ended in February of 2019 after a massive global dust storm on Mars blocked solar panels and terminated communication. Okay, in July 8th, 2011, Space Shuttle Atlantis lifted off from Kennedy Space Center on STS-135 mission. This flight marked the final mission of the Space Shuttle program, concluding a 30-year era of American human spaceflight. The crew of 4 delivered a multi-purpose module to the International Space Station to provide critical spare parts and supplies. Over its duration, Atlantis traveled 5.2 million miles and completed 200 orbits around the Earth. The safe landing of Atlantis on July 21st of 2011 brought a formal end to the Space Shuttle program and shifting the NASA's focus toward commercial partnerships. Okay, July 9th, 79, NASA's robotic Voyager 2 spacecraft made its closest flyby of the solar system's largest planet, Jupiter, passing within only 350,000 miles of the planet's cloud top. The probe transmitted thousands of high-resolution images back to Earth. The flybys reveal new detail about the Great Red Spot on Jupiter, and discovered active volcanic moon, Io, alongside ice-covered Europa. Voyager 2 discovered details about them. Voyager 2 utilized Jupiter's massive gravity to accelerate its flight toward its next target, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. The observations made during this encounter revolutionized our understanding of Jovian planetary and satellite systems. Okay. July 10th, 1962, Telstar 1 communication satellite was successfully launched into space aboard a Delta rocket from Cape Canaveral. Developed by AT&T and Bell Labs, it became the world's first active communication satellite. Just hours after launch, Telstar 1 facilitated a historic first transmission of live transatlantic television signals. The satellite remained operational for several months, proving the feasibility of space-based global communications network. Eventually rendered inoperable in early 1963 due to radiation damage. Okay, and the last event in this week is July 11, 1979. Skylab, the first space station launched by the U.S., made its dramatic re-entry into Earth atmosphere. The station had been left unoccupied since the departure of the Skylab 4 crew in February of '74. Solar activity had expanded the Earth's atmosphere, increasing drag on the station and causing its orbit to decay faster than anticipated. And while NASA attempted to steer the station toward a remote area of the ocean, debris ultimately of the deorbit ultimately rained down over the Indian Ocean and Western Australia. But unfortunately, no injuries or major property damage was reported. And that wraps it up for this week's space history, birthdays, and etc. So let's go back to Virginia, net control, NV5F, and looking forward to some jokes on, and maybe Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. So back to you, Chaz. Back to you, Virginia, W5GUS.
Okay, well, we have run long, so it looks like we're going to have to forego the fun jokes this week. Chaz, are you good with just doing a double duty next week on constellations?
Just postpone Hercules until next week. Just one constellation. KF5JHA, 73, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Chaz. I apologize. We had a lot of crazy stuff going on this evening. Okay, well, that's going to be it for Skynet. Are there any final check-ins before I close the net tonight? Please come with your call sign, your name, and your location. Okay, nothing heard there, so it looks like we have about 19 hams participating in Skynet this evening. Appreciate everybody who hung out with us tonight. Scroll down, get to the end of the net, since we unfortunately had to not do a few things, but that'll be all right. We'll do them next week. So, we did have 19 hams participating this evening. And on the air, thank you to all who checked in this evening on Skynet. We hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for new net control stations for this and all the DARC nets. If you would like to try your hand at this, contact net controls by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussion about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and X, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. Until next Saturday night, this is NV5F. My name is Virginia, and I will be closing the net at 10:33 p.m. local time and returning this repeater to normal amateur use probably for about 5 minutes until we begin the Afterglow net. 73, everybody, and enjoy the evening discovering the universe in V5F.
This is KE5ICX. We'll be starting in about 5 minutes. My audio okay for tonight? This is KE5ICX. go ahead and ask again. Is my audio sufficient for tonight? This is KE5ICX.
K5ICX NV5S. Yeah, I think it's good. Your audio tends to run a little bit on the quiet side, and I think it's about normal in V5S.
All right, well, I'll give it a shot this evening. Boy, I thought I had this thing fine, and found out not so much. All right, I'll be back in 5. KE5ICX. All right, everybody wander back over to your radio. It is now time to talk about tonight's disaster film. Tonight's disco musical called The Apple from 1980. Boy, have we got a winner tonight. It'll be worth kind of sitting around and hearing about this because nobody knows about this movie except who's listening on the radio right now. And maybe the people who produced it, the ones that are still alive, that is. So here we go. This is KE5ICX. My name's Tom. I'll be your net control for tonight's Afterglow movie, The Apple from 1980. Here's a little description about the movie. The Apple is a notorious dystopian sci-fi musical film that has achieved a legendary status as a cult classic bad movie. Directed by Menachem Golan and produced by the infamous Canon Films, the movie was originally intended to cash in on the massive success of musicals like the Blocky Horror Picture Show in Greece. Instead, it became a massive box office flop that is celebrated today for its campy earnestness, bizarre plot, and over-the-top 1980s aesthetics. Set in the futuristic year of 1994, the story serves as a heavy-handed, glitter-soaked allegory for Adam and Eve and the music industry. Who knew those two things went together? The setup. Safe folk singing duo Alfie and Bibi, get it? Alfie and Bibi, travel from Canada to compete at the World Vision Song Festival. The villains. Even though they are the crowd favorites, the festival is rigged by the devilish music tycoon Mr. Bugalow, leader of the Bugalow International Music, or BIM, not to be confused with BMI, which is a completely different international music group. The temptation, Mr. Bugalow targets the couple, successfully seducing Bibi into a wild lifestyle of fame and drugs and rock and roll. Meanwhile, Alfie refuses to sign his soul away and fights to rescue her. The dystopia. BIM's corporate influence grows so absolute that it takes over the world, forcing the global population to perform mandatory daily exercises and wear holographic triangle stickers to show corporate loyalty. Sounds like SpaceX. The climax. Alfie hides out with a group of cave-dwelling hippies. Of course, where else would they be after the 60s? Stevie eventually escapes BIM to join him, but Bugaloos arrives with the police to arrest them for a $10 million contract violation. Ultimately, God, literally named Mr. Top, descends from the sky in a glowing, flying Cadillac to rapture the hippies away to a new planet. Let's see. It was a critical disaster. Upon its release, the film was universally panned by critics. At the Montreal World Film Festival premiere, the audience hated the film so intensely that they threw their complimentary soundtrack vinyl records at the screen, which deeply traumatized director Menachem Golan. Despite the meager 20% score on Rotten Tomatoes, The Apple has been reevaluated by the bad movie enthusiasts as a spectacular masterpiece of unintended comedy. Is frequently paired with other campy disasters of the 1980, like yes, I've seen it, and formerly the top worst movie, Can't Stop the Music. I have to tell you, Can't Stop the Music can't stop this movie from being the worst musical ever made. It actually makes Can't Stop the Music almost good. And with that, we will begin our discussion of tonight's movie, The Apple from 1980, or if you would like to talk about other incredibly terrible films that are musically inclined, you may do so as well. So, this is what we'll do. I'll take check-ins with the call sign name and did you see tonight's movie, The Apple. Then we will go into discussing the movie's various elements. We'll talk about plot on the first round. We'll talk about the acting in the second round. And then we'll talk about not-so special effects and the wildly weird clothing in the third round, which should all be fairly amusing. Or not. Or not. Nothing will happen, and we will just turn our radios off, pull the coax out of the back of the radio, and never get on the air again. But you decide. Here we go. I will now take check-in. Please come with your call sign, your name, and did you see tonight's movie, The Apple, from 1980?
This is November Tango 5, Tango Mike. Tony in East Dallas. I saw this movie. I heard this movie, and I am alive to tell the tale, unlike others. This is
Bill in Irving. I didn't understand your description. I heard Tony describe it on earlier nets as a movie you did not want to watch, so I didn't watch it. I did not watch it. In fact,
This is K9AHO, Brian and Terrell. I also did not watch the movie, but with that setup, I cannot wait to hear what you all have to say about it. K9AHO.
November Victor 5 Foxtrot, this is Virginia in Fort Worth, and despite advice to the contrary, I actually did watch this movie.
This is Alpha Charlie 5, Victor Charlie, Cecil, and Mesquite. And I did watch the movie.
All right, there's a pause in the action. Let me go ahead and get the folks here checked in. Yeah, I've got an echo here somewhere. Still don't know where the echo is coming from. Very odd. Okay, we have, first off, Tony, NT5TM in East Dallas. Yes, he saw the film. N5DD Bill in Irving. No, he did not see the film, but we will ask him later if he's still awake. K9AHO, Brian. No, he did not see the film, but he did check in bravely, I might add. N5F Virginia in Fort Worth. Yes, she saw the film. AC5DC. Cecil. I think he said Fort Worth. He could be elsewhere, but he also saw the film, bravely admitting his evil ways. Anyone else would like to check in? Please come out. Okay, well, we'll start with those, beginning with Tony, NT5TM. Tony, your thoughts on the plot for our fine film this evening, The Apple from 1980.
I found the plot to be tedious, horrible, predictable, and thoroughly unpleasant. Yes, we have Adam and Evie, or I guess Dee, who are tempted by Satan, who promises fame and perhaps a better goatee, although which of them will get to where the goatee is left to our own imagination. She is offered a taste of an apple because, well, that's not predictable at all. There is a contract to sign because we've never heard any myths like that. She experiences all sorts of wonderful things with people wearing weird costumes, and it's insinuated that there is a lot of sex and drugs going on, although because this is fundamentally a G-rated movie, I don't know if it was rated or not, but, you know, it's one of these old movies where they want to imply that people are being sinful or bad or wicked or dangerous, but they can't show them doing any of those things. So they have to sort of vaguely imply that people in shiny costumes are bad. So the plot continues to advance in fits and starts without anything really happening ever, and apparently Alpha and Beta, Elfie and BB, have a kid who miraculously grows to be about 2 while they're living in a park with, like, no food and whatever, okay. And, then they get taken up to space in a sort of is that a Lincoln Town car? I don't know, some sort of very ugly car from the 70s that you could land a helicopter on the front or the back. Maybe not both because the rotors would clash, but, you know, definitely suitably sized for landing aircraft on. A 70s car. So the plot was tedious and boring and full of completely predictable elements. It was absolutely free of suspense, and I will trash the other parts of it later. NT5TM.
Well, thank you, Tony. That's exactly what I was hoping you would say. Yes, this was quite the film. Okay, let's see. Bill has not seen the film, but we will talk to him later. Brian has not seen the film, but Virginia has. ND5FM. Virginia, your comments, please, about the plot. I know this is one of your favorite films, right after Xanadu, or maybe before. Please go ahead.
Okay, well, yeah, Tony covered the basics. I found the allegory here to be very heavy-handed and pointless. There was no real need for it. It was like, what did I say? I said it was something like the worst of Grease, Logan's Run, and Xanadu, but there was a little bit of Fahrenheit 451 in there too. You had sort of that. They were trying for so many different things here. They had sort of the musical thing and the wistful songs, which were bad parodies of wistful songs from other musicals. They had the, the stereotype pure characters that get, the Eve gets seduced into the evil, and, in this version, Adam doesn't. I guess that was maybe the only interesting thing, was that they didn't follow and the apple was kind of pointless. I don't know. The whole thing was, it was the plot about the hippies are good and sparkly people are bad, and this was rated PG. I did look that up because back then the rating system had only been around for about 12 years, and there wasn't a PG-13. There wasn't kind of that in-between rating between PG and R, and there were parts of this that were, by my estimation, bordering on, and I think that's why this movie failed. It was so tacky and so inappropriate for any possible audience in a PG range. I mean, it wasn't it wasn't really appropriate for children or teenagers, and it wasn't going to appeal to the naughty crowd because it wasn't naughty enough. But then there were a couple moments where people were practically naked, and there was one scene that was, I would consider, like, almost softcore pornography, but, PG was the only rating they could give it, and it just wasn't appropriate. The movie itself just wasn't appropriate on any level. I'm not saying I was offended by it. It was just awkwardly not suitable for a specific crowd, and it definitely wasn't an everybody movie, because there's those too, and the plot of this was boring and, like Tony said, sort of predictable, heavy-handed allegory, a sudden solution to everything at the end with, it was literally God in the machine. God shows up and just goes, we're going to start over on another planet. Or at least the allegorical equivalent of God, which that's not how the story goes at all, but in this version of God, he just comes and goes, oh, well, I'll just come and fix everything, all at once. Literally God in the machine. It was hard to tell whether they were, making a statement about the oppressiveness of morality, or whether they were, saying that, they were pushing boundaries. I think that's another reason this flopped. It was pushing boundaries that were for a PG-rated movie, that, showing a lot of like almost nudity and drug use, and implying that very strongly. It just didn't fit anywhere, and the music was just bad and kind of just phoned in, pedestrian, boring music. The opening, I thought, was the most interesting part of the plot, was because they were doing their kind of body whatever, just kind of seducing the masses with their bad stuff, and then this, Adam and Eve, pure folky folk singers wearing white outfits, come with their guitar and they're singing, and everybody really loves it, but the bad guy, the Satan guy, he's like, oh, we can't have anybody loving anything that's pure or good, and so they had to hypnotically, make them not like it, and then they had to go, well, we can't have these people out in the world doing pure, good, nice things, so we have to, suck them in and get them involved in a contract and ruin them and, turn them on our side and use them up. And, there was that was probably the most interesting bit of the whole thing. And then after that, it was just kind of, it was just ridiculous and didn't really have a point to make or anything good to say. And even if a movie doesn't have a great point to make, for instance, Back to the Future, we watched, that actually has a pretty nice point to make, but it doesn't hit you over the head with it, about appreciating your past and the people in your past and the people that, got you where you are in the world, and but it didn't do it in a way that was like, oh, this movie's all about having some great purpose. It just had a really good plot. You don't have to have an amazing purpose if you've got a pretty good story to tell, but this story was, as Tony said, very predictable, and even though it had sort of that quick fix at the end, it was like, yeah, okay, whatever, man, you don't really care, and but yeah, it was kind of all over the place, and it was a very thin plot that was, padded out with music and dance numbers and flashy costumes and quirky characters that you're supposed to kind of like, even though they're bad guys. And then you had the one bad character that sort of realized that Alfie wasn't going to turn to the bad side. She was trying to do that, and she realized that she would rather be good like him. And so there was that. Too little, too late on that kind of a plot line. But yeah, it was just, it's just super cheesy and not very engaging. But I wasn't completely disgusted by it. I was just like, yeah, this is just bad, but it's that kind of bad that's just sort of fun to watch, like a musical disaster in slow motion. Back to net in D5F.
All right, thank you, Virginia. Next up is Cecil, AC5DC. Cecil, what did you think about tonight's movie, The Apple from 1980?
This is Cecil, AC5VC. In a word, desperation. The start of it was really interesting. Hey, Bim's on the way, and the competition being based on heartbeats, I think, and it was just really strange. It's not even what I expected. I have just got started watching some of the Afterglow movies, and I've heard about some of the others, but this one kind of took all of that to the extreme. But I saw some, for me, some really strange parallels. Mr. Bugaloo, for some reason I kept thinking of Phil Spector. And for BB, some of the adulation and all of that attention that she was getting reminded me of Taylor Swift. Kind of weird that way, I guess, seeing that, but I did see that. It was about the corruption of a couple and then them suddenly changing their ways, coming to see the error of their ways. I don't know. I wondered how they found so many people that were willing to appear in the movie. A lot of people that were in bad need of dental work. The fangs and everything were prominent, but no makeup and no amount of anything could hide what these people were doing. There were some interesting parallels. I think this was made in 1980. I was looking at 1994. There were baby buggies that, for me, kind of resembled the Tesla pickup trucks. They were that strange. So yeah, it was weirdness personified for me, and I wondered if I was going to be able to make the thing. I kept looking at my watch and how much more is this going to go on, but I did stay with it. But very odd, almost odd to the point of being disconcerting. That's about all I can say about the plot, if there was in fact a plot. This is AC5DC, back to now.
Well, thank you, Cecil, and thank you for your comments and descriptions of our fine film this evening. You did well. I will now ask if there is anyone else who would like to check in this evening. We are talking about tonight's movie, Castle, from 1980. A disco musical. Yes, in 1980. When disco musicals weren't making a big splash. Not to be confused with Can't Stop the Music, which was also a 1980 disco musical, or Xanadu, which could be considered also a disco musical, all of which went down in flames. But let me go ahead and ask, anyone else want to join us this evening? We can talk about those movies too. Please come with your call sign names if you see the Apple.
N5BB Recheck. I fast-forwarded through the movie and saw the end, so I can make some comments now.
Okay, got you, Bill. Anyone else want to check in?
Kilo Bravo 90 Oscar Kilo, Sean Fort Worth. Yes, I did see this movie.
All right, another. KV9SOK. Sean, you're up. What do you think about the plot to Wirefine Film from KV556?
Yeah, this is KV9SOK. Well, I think for the most part everybody's said everything. This was actually a pretty simple plot. At the end of the day, everybody said it's basically God versus the devil and luring these people to the, one way or the other. And there just wasn't a whole lot else to this movie. It was just kind of an excuse to do, I think, a musical. But unfortunately, I noticed the third round, the musical part of it was horrible. The music was horrendous. Some of the worst songs I've heard. But anyway, and the ending was just completely nuts with just picking them up, taking them in to wherever in that car or whatever it was. The only thing, I forget who he actually said, the beginning of it, I actually thought the movie for the first 15 minutes was also going a different direction. It actually seemed like it could be interesting. At first I thought it was something to say about the music industry and about, potentially the future of the government kind of controlling what you listen to, kind of manipulating people, not wanting people to listen to the classics and country music, and then just trying to get people to listen to whatever you want to call they were singing. I wouldn't even call it disco. But yeah, that's really where I thought it was going, and then it was, you seen it switch directions, and then the movie quite honestly got boring. So yeah, I don't really have a lot to say about this one. It was kind of a hard watch. It was almost funny, but it wasn't, it was bad, but not bad enough to be something that would become a cult classic, but I guess it has. So yeah, this was, I'm sure those involved regretted it. Anyway, I don't got much to say. Back to Nat. KV9SOK.
All right, thank you, Sean. Okay, everybody tried to hold this up. Bill, I'll come back to you in a bit. I'll give you a double on this next round. Or you might need a double on this next round. Okay, I'm going to make my comments after Sean film. First off, I am immune to bad films, as you all know, but I am especially immune to bad films that are musicals. And I am triply immune to bad movies that are musicals that are disco musicals. Because I've actually watched more than two terrible musicals. One of them, Can't Stop the Music, with the Village People and Bruce Jenner, and directed by the actress Nancy Walker, who never directed a film in her entire life until that film came out. And then Xanadu, which I could actually sing the Xanadu song and watch Gene Kelly improvise on roller skates through the entire thing with Michael Beck with a 5-alarm headache through the entire thing. So I can just, and Olivia Newton-Baum, all together in that same film, I can watch that and actually enjoy it. So you can tell, I can, even through repeat watching this terrible musical. So I really didn't have a problem watching this. There was no plot, of course, unless you just want to read Genesis over again. But it could be very entertaining for kids. You could read Genesis in Bible school, and well, I guess you can't really show anything from the movie either. Well, from the neck up, you can show everything from the neck up. That would be fine. And we know who the devil is because he's got one horn. Why one? I don't know. Maybe he lost the other one in a pencil sharpener or something. I don't know. At any rate, I didn't mind it. No plot, nothing. The most annoying part was the landlady wanting her money. She was annoying, but that's what you would expect from a landlady. The singing was terrible. Nobody could sing, that's for sure. The dancing was, I've seen better dancing at grade school talent contest, but that was okay because everybody at least went through the motions. Every ambience was the same. It looked like ads for Coca-Cola, which, by the way, I think there was ad placement for Coca-Cola. I think Pepsi took the lead after that. I certainly would have switched Pepsi. But, and the songs are repetitious and boring, which is okay. I don't mind that, as long as you can tap your foot to the beat as much as it is. I don't know. What else can I say? The main characters, they survived. They shouldn't have. But my favorite character, of course, is Mr. Bugaboo. He seems to be really in step with everything that's going on, and I actually liked his dance number in the mall. That was pretty good. He was very good at that. And he was in Shogun. I don't know what he played in that. I guess the devil in Shogun. So he got typecast to this one. The whole thing was filmed in West Germany at the time. I think this delayed the actual reintegration of Germany by about 10 years because, 1979. So, blame this movie because of that. There was no integration. And then I found, BIM, B-I-M. It could be IBM too, or BMI. Well, think of all the things you could do with 3 letters. I guess those are the only things. I don't know. Or, M-I-Nib. Nib. It could be a song about Nib. M-I-B. Men in Black. Look at all the names and things you can come up with I and M. So that was very innovative, I think. Okay, well, that was a whole bunch of nothing. I didn't think it was all that bad. It was worse than good, but not as bad as it could have been. But it will go rock bottom on all musicals ever made. Probably the worst, but entertaining enough with the poor dance numbers and the horrible acting and the repetitious singing to keep me interested. Now I think my drugs are wearing off. Okay, let's go back up to the top. I will start with Tony, and then I'll give Bill a chance to give his 2 or 3 cents worth of this fine film, maybe 4. So, Tony, you're up. Please go ahead with your comments on, what are we at? Characterization and acting. This should be good. From KE5, ICX.
I will be a good radio amateur, and I will not insult the costuming, the lyrics, or the music until next round. That's all round 3 stuff. Tom, you really do deserve my sympathy, because last night I was thinking about how, I don't feel well, I want to, cut down on empty calories, I just can't drink enough to properly appreciate this movie, and I wouldn't if I could, and then I realized you and Randy gave up alcohol altogether for reasons of health and fitness, so you had to take this movie without so much as a glass of wine. I don't think that would have made it any better, but it might have made you a little numb and distracted, which would have helped. So yeah, I found the characters insipid and forgettable, and I did not ever care about them at all. I guess Bim was, the goatee devil guy was mildly amusing at times. He did put me in mind of the guy who did the snake in the musical ballet version of The Little Prince. Aaron showed me some really good scenes with the snake. And the guy who did Bim was not nearly that good, and the music wasn't that good, and the material wasn't that good. But hey, the devil is always supposed to have a goatee and do a lot of pitched speech, right? This movie is almost unique in that I could clearly tell all the characters apart, and I did remember their names, but I didn't ever care about them at all. That's a real achievement. You have to make a really strange movie to accomplish that. people have to dress differently and do different things, and you have to give them different hairstyles, and you have to work really hard to differentiate them, but then you can't give them anything that makes them in any way interesting. So they achieved a really unique thing that's never happened in all of my movie watching. I never for one moment forgot someone's name. I just wanted them all to go away. NT5TM.
Thank you, Tony. Yes, I gave up alcohol, and I did really think about maybe restarting because it might have been a healthy thing to do, mental health rather. Oh well. I did manage to fall asleep for like 9 hours last night, so this still put me to sleep. Okay, Bill, we've been saving you. You fast forwarded through the film, and now you have a basic misunderstanding or understanding of the film. You get to tell us about what you think about the plot, followed by, lucky you, characterization. So, Bill, N5TV, you're up.
Oh my, this is N5BB. Well, I remember 1980. I turned 27 years old in 1980, so I remember it very, very well. But this movie had all the worst of the late 70s and early 80s, and it also was just a horrible rethinking of the hippie experience of the late 60s, early 70s. It was just all messed up. So I also skimmed through the Wikipedia article about this movie. The Golem, who was the guy, the Israeli guy that was responsible for this, after all these really bad reviews came out, I mean, really bad, according to Mary Catherine Stewart, the actress that played the female lead, he seriously considered throwing himself off a balcony at the hotel, committing suicide, because he said, they just don't understand my concept of what I was doing in the movie. And the reviewer said, every song was bad, the concept was bad, everything about it was bad. And it was overproduced. They used jillions of cameras to do the thing. They spent many times more money than they originally intended to. It was just a big mess. Mary Catherine Stewart, she was her last name was changed. This is the first movie she'd made, and so they didn't like her original name, so they changed her last name to Stewart. Anyway, she didn't think of herself much of a very good singer. They sent her to a vocal coach. Evidently, the vocal coach thought that she could sing well enough for the movie. But the producers got cold feet, and they dubbed it in with a professional singer. So it's even got dubbed stuff in this musical stuff. It's like the worst of Jesus Christ Superstar mixed with the worst of Willy Wonka, mixed with the worst of Rocky Horror, mixed with just the worst of maybe some blaxploitation movies from the 70s. I don't know. It's a big mess. And then I moved down to the end of the film and saw the gold Rolls Royce in the sky, the guy coming down in the white suit, and then all these people rapturing up into the sky in a very schlocky method. In other words, that was one of these really bad special effects. Really, really bad. It was better if they'd had you imagine it and maybe show the shadows of the things rather than showing the real horrible, bad special effects. So, oh my. I remember, I think of other bad special effects in other films. That's what they used in this one. I think about bad musical things in other films. That's what they used in this one. I thought about bad plots. Well, they got it. I thought about this stupid, the guy in black is supposed to be the devil, the guy in white is supposed to be godlike. Well, they used it. Oh my, oh my. I can't imagine wanting to see this movie a second time because I didn't even see it fully the first time, and I got more than I needed to see by just skimming through it and watching the last scenes of the movie. I think that's my comments. In 5BB.
All right, thank you, Bill. I think you're done. I had a little interruption here on the radio. It likes to tell me stuff right in the middle of people talking, so I don't know if it's over, and I think you are. Okay, Brian, K9AHO, you get a chance to chime in here. What do you think? Is this going to be on your watch list, or is it going in the dustbin of history? From KE5, ICX.
Definitely not on my watch list, but I have been absolutely delighted to hear you guys talk about this and crack one another up. So thank you very much. It was worthwhile from that perspective. K9AHO.
It has taken and turned that station wagon around and headed back home and actually taken, after we panned the movie mercilessly, flogged the dead horse, actually come out and changed our minds by the end of the film because somebody makes some comment that suddenly changes our minds of the film from the wholly horrible thing to horribly whole. Yes. Those things can be turned around. So be aware and listen carefully. Somebody may change their minds about this film and actually say they liked it and will watch it again. You have been warned. Next up, Virginia, ND5S. Virginia, your thoughts on characterization?
Characterization in this was just all stereotypes. You had the bad guy who was essentially the devil, and you had the Adam and Eve characters, and you had the guy who was sort of the serpent character who was trying to lure her away, and you had the just the general assistant bad guys who were just sort of the sidekicks, and I mean, it was obviously equating the music/showbiz industry with basically like stealing the souls of people. You know, they have their purity and they have their creativity, and this music industry kind of sucks that out of them and uses them up and takes advantage, and everybody did, they played their part the way it was intended to come across. there wasn't a whole lot of stuff for them to do per se. The acting was, the acting wasn't great, but the plot, didn't give them much to act out really. There was I can't remember, there was one delivery in it, just some lines where I was like, golly, this is just so, just cheesy. And I mean, all the dialogue was pretty cheesy, and the hippies were cheesy, stereotypical hippies, and I don't know, I don't have a lot to say. It was, maybe the actors were better than the material, but the material just wasn't very good. There were some attempts at, especially among the minions of the Boogaloo guy, they were attempting to make them sort of colorful and quirky and a little whimsical and maybe even kind of likable, and they were pushing boundaries with seeing how much they could get away with in certain on certain fronts, where the movies of the 70s had done a lot of that. And I mean, this is super post-70s. I'm guessing this was probably conceived of in the mid-70s when musicals like Saturday Night Fever, well, that was not really a musical, but it was a dance movie. Dance movies like that, and musicals like Grease, and that sort of thing were conceived of, and this probably was, I mean, it felt more 70s than 80s, but it definitely had some 80s vibe to it, because there's decades in entertainment aren't discrete. That's just what we think of, like, oh, in 1980 everything suddenly changed, but it was still very 70s in the 80s, in the early 80s. So it just felt like that. It just felt like, that standard issue musical, but there wasn't a very good story, so you had the characters that, like Tony said, you could tell them apart, you remembered their names, they were distinct from each other. The main ones, you totally did remember their names, but yeah, it was just, had a lot of dancers and bit characters and bit players and a huge cast and lots of costumes, and they were going for a certain look with all the holographic, shiny sticker material. That was a new thing that, I remember those kind of stickers, those holograph stickers were like a big thing in the early 80s, and that was a new sort of material they were using everywhere in costuming and sets and stuff. But anyway, I digress. The acting was, it was just pretty boilerplate, and not great actors or memorable actors, and not terribly great singing or dancing, but if the story had been good, even a simple story that's kind of good, I think Xanadu is a good example. That movie, it doesn't have great acting either, and but the people are, they're decent at their story, and the story itself is better, and that makes up for a lot of fair to middling acting if the story's even kind of decent. So that's it for me on acting and characterization. None of these people stuck out to me, but like Tony said, you could tell them apart, and you could tell what the story was and who the characters were, and I guess that's saying a little something. Back to net in V5F.
Okie dokie. Thank you, Virginia. I'm reading through some of the reviews over on Amazon. Boy, have I got some things for you when my turn comes up. You're going to love this. The big shocking reveal. AC5BC. Cecil, you're up. Your thoughts about characterization from KE5 ICX.
AC5VC. For me, the characters, the human ones, if you could call them that, after a while they kind of got so boring that I was looking for something else to focus on. So I guess my favorite character, if I have to have that in the movie, was the apple. Apparently they wanted it to be very obvious. The apple, as I remember in that scene, was the size of your head. So, I guess since they called the movie The Apple, they wanted to bring your attention to that and make sure that you got it. The other thing that was interesting to me more than the characters was the grimy buildings. For some reason, they held my interest more than the actual characters themselves, the human characters. There was one character that kind of stood out at the end, but it was only because of the name that they chose for him. I thought it was kind of inventive, Mr. Tops. And that came as a surprise and was mildly interesting. But that's about all I have to say about the characters. They didn't interest me, and I was kind of glad to be able to attempt to focus on something other than the characters themselves. Back to net, AC5VC.
Thank you, Cecil. Next up is Sean, KB9SOK. Sean, your thoughts on characterization?
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Well, I agree with the group. These characters were pretty bland, pretty standard. Nothing really stood out. They were just kind of boring characters. I don't know if these actors went on to do anything good, but I'm not going to blame the actors for this one. It just wasn't a great story. There wasn't much they could do with it. So yeah, I'm not going to drag this out. I have all to say about these actors. Back to that, KB9SOK.
Somebody call sign now.
Kilo 5, Juliet, Delta Whiskey, John and Coppell.
There's a blast from the past. K5JDW, John in Coppell, happily retired. John, did you see our film tonight? The Apple from 1980?
Hello, Tom and the group. I did not, sir. I was just chiming in to let you know I was in the background and give you another check-in. I would have checked in earlier, but man, I cannot hear you at all. I can't turn the volume up too loud because I'm working on a deck. So anyway, just wanted to check in, say hello, and K5JDW.
All right, well, thank you for checking in. I appreciate it, and I'm going to look into the audio again. Apparently, I made it worse, not better, from earlier, but at any rate, I'll do my best to shout into my microphone, and maybe you'll hear me, maybe you won't. Okay, just my comments here. I liked the devil. He was fun. Bugaloo, or whatever his name was. He was a fun character. He actually loved his job very much. He didn't like some of the people that worked for him. He had his secretary guy thing, whatever that guy was. He was okay, but kind of annoying. His crew in the studio there taking care of the heartbeat stuff, it looked like something from America's Got Talent, or whatever that show is, something like that. So, yeah, they predicted the future. What would 1994 look like? America's Got Talent or something, or I don't know, whatever. So there's that. One of the things I found interesting, though, I thought I would mention, is some of the reviews over on Amazon. This movie got, out of 201 global ratings, a 4.5 out of 5, a 76% approval rating, ladies and germs. That's right. Some of these are perfect 5s. Says from RV Riccio, humor, satire, song and dance in a rock opera format. He loved this clever film enormously when it came out in 1980. It's so bad it's good. Just another indication that Americans have lost their sense of humor and are too dim-witted to understand satire anymore. Of course the acting is bad. It's because it's a parody of a rock opera form. No one in this film is taking this seriously. He goes on and on, and I don't know. But here's another one. Greatest movie ever, from Catherine, who refuses to give her last name. This was in 2008. So she's probably since died. Next, sometimes it's so good, it's so bad it's good, from 2005. That's from Stephanie. She liked the film. She's happy now that it's on DVD. And then Robert, he gave his full name. If you cross Can't Stop the Music in 1984, I couldn't have said it any better. And that was from 2008, folks. So, and then Claire says, no more bootleg copies. Hooray! So, you see, you guys just aren't with it. You're just grumpy Americans that don't understand crappy movies. That's what's happened. King Papa says, visually amazing in a bar at night with no sound. That's what he said, and he's a verified purchase. He bought the film. And then, of course, Cafe Flash, who appears to be French, said, pas de problème, or something like that. It says, DVD Buen Reçu, which I can translate into English, which means report. I don't know what that means. Well received. DVD well received. We don't know what that means. Well received, and it wasn't destroyed on the way to his home in France, or he received the film well as a DVD, or he was well when he received the film. In other words, he was healthy, and we don't know what happened after he watched the DVD. Who knows? But Mr. Andrew that Valerie says a very good musical, and he's in the United Kingdom. So something's wrong with us. People like this film. It got a 78%, folks. What can I say? Okay. All right, we're going to run the last final round here. This one is everything that's wrong with this movie, which is technically the music, the lighting, the costumes, and I don't know, whatever else you want to add, the music, the lyrics, you name it. We'll start with Tony. NC5PM. Tony, this is your final shot. Your left uppercut. Give it your best shot from KE5 ICX.
Well, you know, the lighting was actually not bad. I think I was almost always able to see what the cinematographer... excuse me, hold on. Sorry, not quite back with the real world here. I think I almost always saw what the cinematographer wanted me to see. Sadly, though, I think I owe an enormous apology to Andrew Lloyd Webber. I had an ex-best friend who was really into musical theater, and I have seen more than one production of Evita live. I thought of Andrew Lloyd Webber as, this stuff is okay, but there's nothing that really, changes my life. This is not a great work of art. It's just kind of a pleasant evening. Now, thanks to this movie, I understand just how difficult it is to create a pleasant evening. You have to write words. So many words. Words for the middle of the song, the beginning of the song, the end of the song, and the parts between the beginning and the middle and the end. Weird Al Yankovic did a wonderful parody. This song is just 6 words long. This song is just 6 words long. Yeah, you can guess what song that was for. That had more words than these songs. They were so repetitious. It was like listening to somebody's first composition from junior high school. So yeah, writing 3 minutes of lyrics for a 3-minute song turns out to be harder than I ever imagined. And I owe that realization to the people who wrote the songs for this movie, or mostly didn't, because what they actually wrote were about 30-second intros that were then repeated over and over again. So the music was just as bad as the lyrics. Take a theme, repeat it, repeat it, repeat it. People make fun of the music from the actual classical era, before, I mean literally like before the Baroque, because it was so rigid. Yes, you would start a theme, and then you would have to invert it, and maybe play it backwards, and then do this, and raise the first few notes by a third, blah, 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 blah. It was so formulaic, but they didn't even do that. So, bad lyrics, horrendously uninspired amateurish composition. Now, let's talk about costumes. Yeah, they really liked seeing men in skimpy costumes. Those of us who like women didn't get enough eye candy. But mostly what we all got was glitter and shiny things. They got a few things right, like predicting that the 80s would have a lot more saxophone. It did turn out that the 80s would have a lot more saxophone. And very pointy, angular cars. Okay, they got that part right, too. But light bulbs and everything? Pinball? It's really tough to make predictions, especially about the future, and they mostly failed. Everyone wants to wear lots of silver things with pointy lapels, right? No, not even on Miami Vice. So, simplistic music, simplistic lyrics, good lighting. I could always see what the cinematographer was aiming at. The cinematography was not overly distracting. I think that may have displayed some competence on somebody's part. I hope this movie didn't destroy their career. I was never worried I couldn't see where the action was. But I didn't care about the action, and I hated the costumes. NT5TM.
Oh, thank you, Tony. That was so enlightening. I appreciate it. And you hated the costumes. Even better. Don't everybody go away. I've got a big finish for you for this movie. Something you wouldn't expect, but I have it right here for you to listen to. Next up is Bill, N5CB. Bill, your final comments. What did you think? Come on. I know you fast-forwarded through most of it, but you must have lingered with your jaw open and a dumbfounded look. When in the film did that happen? From KB5, I see.
This is N5DB. I'm trying to do a raspberry over the radio, but it's not working very well. That's what I think about the movie. My question is, why? Okay? Why would you write this thing? What were they trying to do? Why would you produce this movie? Why would you watch this movie? Why would you care about any of the characters? Why would you care about any of the music? Why would you care about any of the images you saw? Why would you care about the special effects? Let me mention again the special effects of the people rapturing up to the crafty golden Rolls Royce in the sky with the clouds kind of moving around. Why? Why would you care about that? Why would you want to see it? Did you learn something from the movie? Did you become a better person? Did you get a better understanding of beautiful music? Did you get a better understanding of beautiful humans or what they can do? Did you get an understanding of prose, of great prose or rhyming structure? You didn't get any of that. You got nothing of that. You got a big mess of nothing. A big pile of blankety-blank. That's what I think. I'm sticking with it in 5BB.
Oh, geez, Bill. After all we've tried to do and educate you in the way of modern music, and you're just an old fuddy-duddy. Bim's on the way, man. Bim's on the way. Okay, next up, Brian, K9AHO. You got any final comments you want to make? You have a movie you would like to suggest? Something better or worse than the Apple? Anything you'd like to say? Please go ahead.
Well, I just want to thank you all again for your comments tonight. It was very enjoyable to listen. About the only thing that's crossing my mind right now is whether this might have been produced by Microsoft, but that's a conspiracy theory for another time. K9AHO.
Well, Brian, that's a good question because, as we all know, anytime the word Microsoft is used, usually we are trapped in hell of some sort. So I think you're closer on mark than you might realize. Next up is Virginia, NB5S. Virginia, your final comments. I know you critically acclaimed several science fiction films this evening. Here's your opportunity to do the hat trick. What final words of wisdom do you have for tonight's wonderful film, The Apple from 1980? Or is it 1994? You decide.
Okay, well, I'll start by saying, Bill was saying why. I think this is an example of good intentions and very poor execution and very poor cohesiveness. If you're going to make a movie that's for everybody and has a universal theme, you can't get off in the weeds of trying to be too risque or pushing those kinds of boundaries. It just kind of negates all your efforts. Your reading of the global reviews for this is an example of what I think is, the nuance of something that one experiences in from a different culture. That there's just so much. Yeah, this might have been directed by some Israeli guy, but it's essentially an American style, film that was based on and imitating, American style musicals and dance movies that were popular in the 70s, and it was that genre, and it was using satire on basically the American music industry and the entertainment industry, and a lot of the fashions and trends and things. Some of them European, but, just a lot of really West Coast things and that kind of thing. And so for someone in a different culture, this might be endearing. It might be easy to understand. even if you don't speak English, but you lose all the nuance of like what it was intending versus, you know, how it was executed. And it would be the same if I were watching like a really bad movie from, you know, some other culture that I thought was endearing or lovely or attractive, you know, aesthetically, or, you know, thought the music harmonically sounded driving, because some of this music was so imitating stuff from Greece and stuff like that, and it had that driving harmony that was very compelling, but yeah, the lyrics were just cheese-tastic. They were terrible and very, you know, just very bad and very, you know, just very pedestrian and you know, not terribly sophisticated. But to someone from, you know, who doesn't speak English as their native language, just the universality of the music itself could, you know, be quite endearing and quite compelling. And the story is super simple and, you know, has people in pretty costumes. And I disagree with Tony. There was eye candy for, you know, there was eye candy for just about anybody in this. There were lots of women in very skimpy, sparkly outfits, and there were lots of men who were practically naked, and there was a lot of hair removal that went on in the prep for this, because boy, those people are not what normal people look like. Whenever I see these kind of movies, I'm like, they had to go through thousands and thousands of people to find, you know, the 1/100th of 1% of people that look like this, except for someone mentioned some crazy dental issues in places, but overall were very good-looking, very attractive, very beautiful people that are not representative of what most of us look like. And that's, you know, that's just something you have to live with when you watch movies or look at magazines or whatever. But anyway, I found this to be musically, you know, very boring, very pedestrian. I thought there was some inspiration on a similar line as what might have inspired Xanadu. They're both kind of post-disco. This didn't really have any like proper disco music in it, but it had a lot of the disco aesthetic, the, you know, sparkly outfits and the sparkly makeup, and, you know, and then you had like the whole drag queen aspect and all that, very 70s, very glitzy, glam, you know, aesthetic, but it was kind of musically sort of post-disco and a little more Grease and a little more of what led to stuff like Xanadu. I will say, if you want to watch a movie in this genre that is much more pleasing, it's cloying at times. The plot is very simple, but musically it's a lot better and a lot more interesting, and aesthetically I think it's more interesting. It like actually achieves some of what this movie didn't, and that is Xanadu. It's 1981. It had a soundtrack by Olivia Newton-John and Electric Light Orchestra, both very talented people, Jeff Lynne and Olivia Newton-John, and they collabed on the theme song, Xanadu, from the movie. That was their one crossover that they did. And then there's some other acts in that movie that did some good numbers. There's a lot of roller skating, which is like a big thing in the late 70s and early 80s. It takes place in Southern California. It's got a cool vibe to it. It's got some of this sort of cheesy visual effects, but they're done better. Like it's kind of what they tried to do at the end of this movie, but a lot better. It's got some of the cheesy kind of sound effects from that era, some of the library-type sound effects. But it's so kitschy in such a endearing way, and it's got Gene Kelly, and it sort of mixes the old with the new. And you know, the acting's not great, the story isn't complicated, but it's a really sweet, fun little movie. And after Tom brought this one up at the end of the thing last week, I mentioned Xanadu because just his description of this reminded me of Xanadu, and I had watched that recently online, and I think that one's a similar genre to this, the kind of musical early 80s, late 70s, early 80s musical genre, and a lot better than this one. It's not an amazing, fantastic, great movie, but when I watched it the other day, I was like, this is really better than, it's really better than I remembered. And so I can recommend that one if you want to see maybe what this was sort of going for, but not with the dystopian stuff, and not with the heavy-handed allegory, religious allegory. Xanadu is much better than this, and is a very much better example of this genre. So I would recommend that one. But yeah, just like I said, I think good intentions, good message that they were trying to get across. Just about superficiality and just that burgeoning sort of greed of that era in the music industry. But just not very well executed, just not very focused, and very pedestrian, and musically so as well. The very last bit, when they were kind of rapturing up, I thought that sounded a little bit inspired by the song Mr. Blue Sky, which was an Electric Light Orchestra. We all know that song now, but in 1978 when Mr. Blue Sky came out, it was a very minor hit. It only got to number 35 in the U.S. It was only on the top 40 here for like a week or two, and then in some other countries it went a little bit bigger, but even in the UK it didn't go that big, and it turned out to be the like sort of flagship ELO song. It's even been billed as the happiest song of all time. And the ending music where they were kind of going up into heaven, I thought it kind of sounded a little bit inspired by Mr. Blue Sky, just my opinion. Mr. Blue Sky is, of course, a much better song and is harmonically incredible. And Jeff Lynne is like the Johann Sebastian Bach of pop music, I think. He really is a genius. So anyway, my opinion, back to net, NV5F.
So in a single sentence, after all of that, you secretly liked this film, and it reminded you of Xanadu, which you also like, which means you're going to have to watch The Unholy Trinity and watch Can't Stop the Music, so that you'll have a complete repertoire of films that are universally hated that you like. Just thought I'd mention that. Okay, next up is Cecil, AC5DC. Cecil, you get your final word, whatever you would like to say, from KE5 ICX.
This movie had a lot of dancing in it, but about the dancing, some of you, or maybe all of you, will recall Seinfeld's Elaine's dancing in a particular episode, and as bad, as horrible, as terrible as that was, she had nothing on these guys. The music, I believe there was another Alfie song, but this Alfie was not like the Alpha we all know and love. It was really bad. There was a line from one song that mentioned deafened ears, which made me long for a pair of them myself. Seinfeld, I don't know, it just was something that was a spectacle beyond belief, a lot of the music and the dancing. There was still one line that I'm still thinking about after watching that. I watched that early in the week, and the line in the movie was, "We live for the fortune and we die for the fame," which I thought was maybe one of the more interesting lines or things that came out of the movie. Somebody should take note of the triangular-shaped glassware, which I thought was kind of inventive and kind of fun. I know it was an attempt to look at what 1980 might look like. The most memorable of all, as far as the ideas that came out of that, was when they said love is out because it cannot be marketed. That was kind of, you got to think how timely that might be. And by the way, I think you mentioned that you had heard that I was in Fort Worth. Actually, it's Mesquite, if that matters. That's about all I can say about it. Back to net, AC5VC.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that, and you took notes, and you listened to all the lyrics. Congratulations, that's better than any of us did. And you got meaning out of the film. That's better than any of us did. And you watched the movie all the way through, which is better than any of us did. Okay, and I just considered Mesquite. Well, that's what? Very East Fort Worth, isn't it? Really, really east. Okay, next up, Sean, KB9SOK, final words of wisdom from KE5 ICX.
Yeah, this is KB9SOK. Unfortunately, no words of wisdom. I agree, the dancing was bad, the music was bad. In fact, I don't even remember a single lyric from this movie, so it must have been bad. Special effects were bad. Yes, I agree. Tony, the lighting was great. We could see people. That was fun. Yeah, the costumes, I don't know why. For some reason, they had it in their head from the 60s on to kind of the end of the 80s that our future, everybody would be wearing, sparkly, bright, glittery clothes that, were pretty revealing. Every movie seemed to do that wanted to predict the future. Not sure why. I'm not sure who the first one's done it, and they're probably the ones to blame for this. But that's, another trope, I guess. Not much else. I really didn't get a whole lot out of this movie. I don't know words of wisdom here. Just, I'd say avoid it if you haven't watched it. Anyway, that's all I got for this week. Enjoyed the conversation as always. Looking forward to the next one. Back to net. KB9SOK.
Alrighty, thank you, Sean. Now, we are now on regular repeater time, so any final comments beyond now, don't forget to let up on the push to talk because you will be timed out. Next up is John, K5JDW. John, any final comments? Are you still awake? Do you know who you are? Do you know where your children are? Do you remember where they were yesterday? From KE5 ICX. I knew it. He ran off. Okay, here it is. Listen to this. Welcome to 1994. BIM's on the way. Sound. Phoebe and Alfie sing a sweet refrain, but the World Vision stage is completely insane. Out of the shadows steps a man in a cape, ready to twist you and shift your shape. It's Mr. Bugalow, the music star. He'll make you a sellout. He'll make you a star. The music is louder, the lighting is quicker. He's offering you glory, he's offering you speed. He's the corporate devil with everything you need. BIM, 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 yeah, BIM's on the way. You've got to dance the Apple dance today. Take a big bite, don't you worry about the score. We're shaking up the future in 1994. Beat an actual vampire. Throw your acoustic guitar in the fire. Welcome to show business. He gets blinded by rhinestones and glitz with poor heartbroken Alfie is having a fit. She's thinking about coming in the sequin dress while the backup dancers cause a rhythmic mess. But Alfie says no to the record contract. He sees through the madness. That is a fact. He's wandering the streets in a neon-lit gloom, having an apocalyptic vision of doom. Don't take the injection. Don't follow the crowd. The synthesizers are way too loud. He's offering glory. He's offering speed. He's the corporate devil with everything you need. Bim's on the way. He's got the dance treat, apple dance today. Take a big bite. Don't you worry about the score. We're shaking up the future in 1994. Need an actual vampire. Throw your acoustic guitar in the fire. Welcome to show business. And then finally, here we go. The bridge. Wait. Look up in the sky. Who is that majestic hippie guy? It's Mr. Tops coming down from above, singing a song for a child of love. Forget the contract. Forget the sin. He's driving a flying Chrysler LeBaron. Well, not really. Pack up the commune. Get in the back. We're escaping the devil, the heavenly track. Flying through outer space next to the sun. Universal melody. Sing it out loud. Where the cantiest glitterous sci-fi crowd. Bim's gone away. And you'll need a final dramatic echo on a synthesizer crash to make that speak. Where did I get that from? I'm not telling. This was actually suggested by somebody here on this radio who will remain anonymous. The movie will be from 1987. Are you listening? Near Dark on YouTube. Yes, Near Dark. It's a horror something, or maybe a horrible film, one or the other, but it is Near Dark, recommended by one of our own who will remain nameless until we start talking about the movie next week. That's it, folks. We'll see you next time. This is KE5ICX signing off. Bye-bye. Bim's on the way.
Kilo 5, Juliet Delta Whiskey.
Well, it sure took you a long time to get to the radio. Your final chance to say something. Say something.
Guess I'll say goodnight. Sorry, your audio is so low. I kind of gleaned from what you said at the end of it that you were calling for me, but I couldn't hear it. My fan is actually louder than you. I know you've never heard that before. Hi. But I have to keep having to turn the radio up to hear you, but I guess you're worth it. I just wanted to say goodnight. I'll be up, I guarantee, a lot longer than you will. K5JW.
Okie dokie. See you, John. Have a good evening. This is KE5ICX. Clear.
Tom, KE5ICX inside BV. Your audio tonight is very weak and it's muffled. It sounds like you're in the closet with all the old videotapes. You're on the floor. The videotapes have fallen all over you. So you're covered with several hundred old, horrible quality videotape boxes, and you're trying to talk. That's what you sound like. You're from another. You're from the next room over or something. You're so weak and muffled. So you need to do something about the audio situation. I don't know if it's on your end or on the Dallas end of that system, but the audio is horrible. Good evening. Have a good week. And please, I hope that movie for next week is better than this one. In 5BB, good night.
kind of like the way your audio would get treated if it went through a muffler or some kind of labyrinth.
Now, I don't know that I'm the only one who recommended this movie, but I think Near Dark is an amazing movie with a terrible, hideous, awful soundtrack. I happen to own more than one copy. So, hey, everybody, please enjoy Near Dark from 1987, the movie Lost Boys, or The Lost Boys Only Wished It Could Be. NT5 TM.
Tony likes the movie. Hates the soundtrack. I'll have to see this one.
So I hear pretty well, and I think the overall general range of the audio is okay. You need your gain higher or something. Also, I think you're the one who wrote those wonderful lyrics that you read at the end. I know how much you love this movie. And finally, I live in East Fort Worth, and Mesquite is nowhere near here. NV5F.
On a global scale, they're right next to each other.
Yeah, if you're at Tau Ceti E, then yeah, they're pretty much all in the same place, but so is everywhere on Earth.
Oh, Tom, you're all messed up down there. You're too close to the Gulf of America. Isn't it what you're next to there, the Gulf of America?
W5FC.
I can see it right out my window. I can, too.
I grew up on the Gulf of America. I lived in Mississippi, in Long Beach, and we could see it from our front door the whole time I grew up. So, but I know where Mesquite is not.
I've got to log out to make it legal. K5JW clear. Good night, guys.
Where we're not. I'm not in Mesquite either, or Fort Worth, or Corpus Christi. Good night. This is N5BB clear.